This is section 8.5, adding and subtracting rational expressions. Now, 8.4 we multiplied and divided. 8.5 now we're going to add and subtract rational expressions. Now, this is really different compared to what we did with multiplication. Okay, so the steps for how to add and subtract monomials. Monomials, remember, are one-term items. We're going to start with one-term items first, and then we'll work to binomials and trinomials. Okay, so number one, if the denominators are the same, so if the bottoms of the fractions are the same, with addition, you're just simply going to combine your like terms in the top. Okay, and the denominator is not going to change. Now, with subtraction, essentially it's going to be the same thing, except for if you have more than one term in the second item, okay, you're going to have to distribute the negative. Okay, and that's what I'm talking about here in number 2. If the denominators are the same, with subtraction, you'll need to distribute the negative to the denominator, this should be numerator, not denominator. So this part right here should be numerator of the fraction before you combine your like terms. Okay? Distribute the negative to the numerator of the fraction before you combine your like terms. And then step 3, you look at it here. Step 3 says if the denominators are not the same, then you've got to find common denominator first. Then you can add or subtract. Okay? Again, if you subtract, you've got to distribute the negative. Now, you're going to find out that as I go through this, I've got 4 examples here. If the denominators are not the same right now, we're simply just going to multiply our denominators together to find the common denominator as we look at these. Okay? All right, let's go through and look at a couple of examples now. Okay, we'll start with number 1. First thing you want to look for, is the denominators the same? And as you look at these two here, the denominators are exactly the same. So we're just going to go ahead and combine our like terms. Now, as you look at the top of the fraction, I've got a 3x squared and I've got a 4. Those two things are not like terms. I can't combine them together. So when I put them down, I've got to write them as 3x squared plus 4 on the top. On the bottom, my denominator is just going to stay the same. I do not add the bottoms together. My denominator just stays as 15. And that's it. You're finished. Okay. So again, when you have like denominators, all you're doing is taking the top parts, combining your like terms, putting them together. Okay. Now, let's take a look here at number 2. Again, I'm going to change this problem for you. So on number 2, I want you to change this plus sign here to a minus sign, just so we can take a look at a subtraction problem. Okay, but you'll notice the very first thing here that your denominators, again, your denominators are exactly the same. So I'm just going to combine my like terms. I've got an x plus a 2y, and again, I have to take this negative and I have to distribute it to everything. It doesn't just make the first term negative. So then it's minus x and minus 4y. If you don't distribute the negative, then you're going to miss every single one of these problems. Okay? So now, once I've done that, I can combine my like terms. My x's are going to cancel out because I got one positive, one negative. Positive 2y and negative 4y is negative 2y over 20y squared. And now I have to look and see, okay, is there anything that I can simplify? On problem number 1, there was nothing I could simplify over there. Here there is. I can divide 2 and 20. What number goes into 2 and 20? That's 2. So this will now become negative. This becomes a 10, and this becomes a 1. So I got negative 1 on top. And I have 2 y's on the bottom and 1 y on the top. 1 y will cancel with 1 y down here. So I have just a negative 1 on the top. And on the bottom, I have a 10y. Okay, so make sure you make that change on problem number 2. Okay, in terms of the minus sign, otherwise your problem is going to be completely messed up. Number 3. Okay, as you look at number 3, as I look at my denominators are not the same now. Now things have changed. Okay, so to find my common denominator here on number 3, I'm going to take the two parts in the denominator and I'm going to multiply them together. And when I take 5 times 4xy squared, I end up with 20 xy squared. So I'm going to rewrite my fraction now. That's what I want on the bottom. Now, how do I get to that? From this first fraction, I'm just going to simply multiply this first fraction by the denominator of the other fraction, 4xy squared. And if I do it on the top or the bottom, I got to do it on the top. So on this first fraction, 4xy squared times 5 is 20xy squared. On the top, 4xy squared times 3x is going to be, 4 times 3 is 12. X times x is x squared. And then I have a y squared left over. Okay, still there. Now, the right fraction. I'm going to multiply this guy by 5 over 5. That's the part that's missing. 8x times 5 is 40x. And I have a 20y squared on the bottom. So now when I combine these, I end up with 12x squared y squared plus 40x all over 20xy squared. Okay, now, just because you've put these together doesn't necessarily mean that you're done. Okay? Once you've gotten to this point, you need to look to see if you can factor your numerator. So as you look at the top part here, what do these guys have in common? Well, the biggest number that goes into 12 and 40, I can take out a 4. These both also have at least one x in them. So I'm going to take out a 4x. What's left here is I had 12 divided by 4 is 3. Okay. I had 2 x's. I'm taking 1 away. I still have 1 left over. I had 2 y's. I didn't take any away. I still got them. Plus 40 divided by 4 is 10. I had an x. I took it away. And I'm going to divide this now by 20xy squared. Okay, now that I've taken that 4x out and they're separated from this plus sign up top, I can take 4 goes into 20 one time, and it goes into 25 times. Okay, 4 goes into itself one time, and it goes into 25 times. And since there's an x on the top and an x on the bottom, I can cancel those guys out. So now my final answer, I don't need the 1. I've got 3xy squared plus 10 over a 5 and a y squared. Now, I cannot cancel out the y squareds because, again, you can't cancel out parts. Remember, that plus sign there binds these two problems together. Okay? All right, let's take a look at one more example. Now, I want you to put this on a blank page or put it on a separate paper. If you want to put this one on the back, that's okay as well. Okay, so now you'll notice on step number 4, we don't have a common denominator. So my common denominator, I'm going to take 5y times 3x, and I'm going to get 15xy. Okay, so I need to multiply this guy by 3x over 3x. And when I do that, 3x times 3x is 9x squared. Over here, I need to multiply this guy by a 5y and a 5y. Okay, so now I've got 30y here. Again, distribute your negative. So this now becomes 9x squared minus 30y all over 15xy. Okay? And then now I've got to look to factor. So on the top, I can take out a 3. And I'm left with 3x squared minus 10y. Take a 3 away from each one of those. On the bottom, I got a 15xy. And you'll notice 3 goes into 15 5 times. So now my final answer here becomes 3x squared minus 10y all divided by 5xy. And again, you can't cancel out the x with that x and the y with that y because of this minus sign. It binds those two together. Okay? The only time where you can cancel is if you take and factor it out front, and then you can cancel because it's no longer with that minus sign. Okay? Okay, this concludes part 1 of section 8.5. Okay, we'll finish up part 2 later, and don't forget to complete your WSQ over section 8.5 part 1.